What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a great Sunday. My name is Anomaly. You can follow me on Instagram at Dream Rare. You can follow me on Twitter at Legendary Energy. And of course, stay tuned on Facebook. Check out my website, legendary.vision, for some of my music, poetry, news analysis, and more. But I want to talk about a very rare occurrence. Once everybody gets in, I'm going to wait about 15 to 20 seconds for everybody to get in. But a very rare occurrence just happened, and that rare occurrence is Washington Post actually told the truth. The Washington Post told the truth about Donald Trump, and the Washington Post finally told the truth about the Middle East and what's really going on. And that's a crazy occurrence because the Washington Post very rarely tells the truth. And before I start telling you what this article is and what it's about, let's talk about the Washington Post and who the Washington Post really is. They say democracy dies in darkness. The Washington Post pretends like they are this, all-being journalism conglomerate that really strikes home the truth, and democracy dies in darkness. But they're one of the biggest culprits of the reason we don't have a democracy. In the United States, we have an oligarchy at best, which is the wealthy and the elites actually run the country. It's not a democracy. It hasn't been for a long time. I believe there's been Harvard or Princeton studies that have shown it's not a democracy, it's an oligarchy. But Washington Post won't tell you that. Their whole message is a lie. Democracy dies in darkness. But they're the number one culprits to why we don't really have a fair democracy. During the primaries between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, they were caught putting 16 negative Bernie Sanders articles in one day. After the election, they hired on John Podesta, Hillary's failed campaign manager, as one of their contributors. So a website or a news organization that hires Hillary Clinton's campaign manager lies about Bernie Sanders, lies about Donald Trump, and then pretends like they're going to preserve and protect democracy. The Washington Post is one of the number one culprits of the reason why we don't have fair elections, and we almost got cheated out of this election. And I do want to note as well, in John Podesta's email leaks, they had said that they purposely elevated Trump and Ted Cruz. They called them Pied Piper candidates. This is 100% factual proof. They purposely elevated Trump, they purposely silenced Bernie Sanders, and they purposely acted as a PR team for Hillary Clinton. So that's who the Washington Post is. They're not fair, they're not honest. They're a giant PR team for John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama, and they disguise themselves as a fair and accurate news source. They're not. They're absolutely not. And they say democracy dies in darkness. Like I just told you, it's really an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. It's the wealthy elites. And nobody is more wealthy in the world now. He's either number 2 or number 1. There's different reports, but Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, or the second richest man in the world, soon to be the wealthiest person on the planet Earth when it comes to finances, bought the Washington Post. So he owns the Washington Post, and they're pretending like democracy dies in darkness. No, it's an oligarchy, and a newspaper is owned by the wealthiest person on the planet. So they lie about virtually everything. They lie about their mission statement. They lied about Bernie Sanders. They lied about Donald Trump. All they basically want to do is put their establishment candidate. They don't care if it's John McCain. They don't care if it's George Bush, Hillary Clinton, Democrats, Republicans. Same thing. That's who the Washington Post is. And I also want to add, after Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post for between $200 and $300 million, that's how much it costs to buy the Washington Post. So now Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world, owns Washington Post. He signed a $600 million contract with the CIA for Amazon, his other company. So they have a cloud agreement or whatever together. So the guy who owns the Washington Post hires John Podesta and then has a $600 million contract with the CIA. Like, to me, you have to be very, very foolish and very dumb not to put the pieces together here about who the Washington Post is and how little the truth they're telling is. And also, I do want to note that Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world for multiple reasons, but Donald Trump constantly attacks him and says he doesn't pay his taxes. Amazon, they say that they don't make a lot of profits, so they don't have to pay a lot of taxes. They definitely, find some loopholes in there. And I'm not judging, I'm not a tax person and whatnot, but the Washington Post has little to no reason to ever support Trump because Trump is telling the truth about Jeff Bezos and Amazon and the taxes. Donald Trump is an actual American. He's not part of the elite class that wants to start all these wars and lie about all these wars like Washington Post and New York Times. They've literally lied about the wars. That's how ISIS and Al-Qaeda have been expanding the past 8 years, because the Washington Post and the New York Times pretend like they're these fair, honest, accurate news sources, but they're really lying about virtually every aspect of the war and covering up the fact that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and George Bush were funding, arming, and supporting terrorist organizations in Syria. So that's who the Washington Post is, if you guys didn't know. I mean, I don't understand how people haven't put the pieces together. It's completely obvious. I could care less whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Progressive. That's who the Washington Post is. It doesn't change who they are. That's who the Washington Post is. So they actually told the truth about the Middle East, and I believe I know why. And if you follow along with this live stream, I'm going to tell you how we could stop the Washington Post and the New York Times from being these dishonest propaganda news outlets disguised as a Democratic, judge or whatever. So this is an article that President Trump shared on his Twitter, because they actually said something nice and told the truth about him. Here's the headline. It's Washington Post. They said, under Trump, gains against ISIS have dramatically accelerated. And they tell the story of what's really happening is ISIS and Al-Qaeda are being defeated in Syria, they're being defeated in Iraq, and with the help of the United States and people we're funding now who aren't terrorists, the Syrian and the Iraqi people are taking back their cities. Under Obama, between the Bush and Obama era with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, the Syrian and Iraqi people lost their cities. I mean, you didn't hear about this in the Washington Post. You didn't hear about this in the New York Times. MSNBC wasn't talking about it. CNN didn't care. But the Iraqi and Syrian people lost their cities to ISIS. ISIS literally controlled their cities, and Al-Qaeda, these terror organizations who chop people's heads off, who kill people based on religion and sex and homophobe. If they're gay, they kill you. This is ISIS and this is Al-Qaeda. They took over these people's cities. And you ask, well, we have the biggest military budget. We went to Syria and Iraq to help. How come ISIS and Al-Qaeda took over during the Obama administration? How did they take over complete cities? And the answer, which many people are putting together now, and this is why you have New York Times and Washington Post backtracking, because the truth is coming out, and the only thing they have to cover it up are just pointing the finger at Trump and pointing the finger at everybody else, and they hope everybody argues between race, religion, and gender, and trans in the military, and this and that. They want you to argue over this because they don't want you to know about what's going on, and that is the fact that they were actually funding terror organizations, ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They're fighting with U.S. weapons. They're driving U.S. tanks. This isn't by chance. They didn't just come up on this. A lot of reports are saying that the U.S. was purposely funding terror organizations. This is a big deal. Purposely giving money and weapons to terror groups to terrorize these poor cities. I mean, Syria and Iraq has been through it because the United States decided to kill their leaders and then just let terror groups run rampant. We were trying to do that in Syria, but we got stopped, and President Trump stopped that. So back to this article, they're talking about all the gains that the United States and the Syrian government and Iraq is making, because now in Iraq and Syria, ISIS is just getting destroyed. And they admit in this article, nearly a third of territory reclaimed from the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria since 2014 has been won in the past 6 months due to new policies adopted by the Trump administration, a senior State Department official said Friday. So in the last 6 months, we've made more progress than we have in the last 4 years. Maybe not more, but once a year goes by and whatnot, I'm telling you, ISIS and Al-Qaeda are not even going to own any territory, because we have a president in Donald Trump, whether you like him or not. He is not funding ISIS. He's not funding Al-Qaeda. While you guys were watching Game of Thrones, while you guys were watching sports, and I play sports and watch sports as well. I'm not looking down or judging anybody, but while everybody was talking about all this stuff that doesn't matter, celebrating this and that, your government was literally, your taxpayer dollars were funding and putting weapons and money in the hands of terrorists. So if you're a true liberal, if you're a true humanitarian, if you're a true environmentalist, I think a number one concern would be, are my tax dollars going to destroying countries and funding terrorism? But apparently truth, logic, facts, reason, and reality don't matter anymore when you have raw emotions and you have the Washington Post, the New York Times, and MSNBC and CNN and all the celebrities and all the musicians lying to everybody. The truth doesn't matter anymore. But luckily with the internet, the truth does matter. Donald Trump is in office and you have an actual human being. I tell people all the time, I think he does love women. I think he loves women. I think he loves buildings. I think he says and does some things that I probably wouldn't say or do. But the man, Donald Trump, does not like war. He's a normal person. I mean, he loves women. He loves buildings and casinos and all the, lavish stuff, but he doesn't like war. He doesn't like kids getting killed. He's a pretty decent person. If you get past all of the news bias and all this crazy stuff, I mean, you see it in the Washington Post every day. They had 16 negative articles about Bernie Sanders. This isn't about Donald Trump. This is about anybody besides Hillary Clinton, anybody besides a George Bush, anybody besides Barack Obama, or any other puppet politician that can be controlled by the Rothschilds and controlled by George Soros and can be controlled, by the Bush and Clinton family. That's what it's about. And Donald Trump is not playing along to that tune. So you're never going to see, and Bernie Sanders, at least during the primaries, he wasn't playing along. So you're never going to see a positive article about them in the Washington Post. It's not because it's true. It's not because they're saving democracy. It's because they have a $600 million contract with the CIA. They have John Podesta on their payroll. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, owns them. That's why you're not going to see the truth in these news outlets. But they told the truth here. And I'm telling you why. Even New York Times published an article after Donald Trump stopped funding moderate rebels. So the news for the last 4 or 5 years has told everybody on CNN their narrative of what was going on in the Middle East is, we're funding moderate rebels, so the moderate rebels can, destroy Bashar al-Assad and destroy the Syrian army and liberate the Syrian people. Meanwhile, the reality of it is Syria has a secular government. They're very religiously tolerant. They celebrate Christmas with a big Christmas tree. They're not this Islamic terror foundation. It's actually a very chill country with a lot of open-minded, free-thinking people that can dress however they want, can pray however they want, and do whatever they want. But the United States media has lied about it because it's a war media. CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, they're war propaganda media. All they want to do is war. They might pander to you because you're transgender. They might pander to you because you're gay. They might pander to you because you're a woman. They might pander to you because you're black and Latino and this and that. And that's great. I hope that they actually do make strides with social justice. But my interpretation of it after, calculating all of the information that's been coming out is they don't care about any of those things. They use those. It's called identity politics, which is basically pandering to people's emotions, pandering to people's race and religion, to start more war. And I mean, it couldn't be more clear now. In America right now, you have people who are more concerned about getting President Trump out of office than what he's doing. You have more people who are concerned with fighting the president more than taking a step back and realizing, holy shark. Say that so I don't curse. I think I didn't curse in this news stream. I didn't want to start it. But they're actually, the United States and the government, what they've been doing for the past 20 years has been terrible. It didn't start and it's not going to end with President Trump. It's going to take real analysis of the situation. And I have to, I have to say thank you to Washington Post for this news article. I'm going to post it before. And here's my thoughts on how we're going to stop fake news and stop the propaganda. Show the Washington Post and show the New York Times that the truth sells. They sell us bad foods. They sell us bad medicines. They lie to us on TV. They do it because we allow it. If everybody didn't play along like I didn't play along and you don't play along and my audience doesn't play along, they wouldn't have those products. They would have to sell healthier foods. They would have to tell you that tea and exercise and sunlight can heal you and you don't need pills for everything. They would have to give you real information. They would have to tell you the truth. I always tell people I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't judge you if you do. I think everyone deserves a break in activities. But, I mean, real life is the best television show in the world. Look at what's going on with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her IT guy. I mean, it's like a spy novel. What's going on in the United States now? It's the greatest television show of all time. Just open Twitter, open Facebook, watch reality. I mean, what's better than your life? What's better than what's going on? Especially when it affects millions of people. I mean, people's lives and wars are literally on the line. I don't really watch TV. I just pay attention to reality. It's the best TV show out. It's the best movie out. It's the best saga out. And it's real. It's not fake. It's not scripted. These aren't actors. You're a part of it. You're playing along in this beautiful story unfolding on Earth. But once again, the Washington Post finally told the truth about the Middle East. And I'm telling you why. It's because with Twitter, with Facebook, with all of these social media, with YouTube, they're not going to be able to lie and control the narrative like they used to. So now they have to backpedal or else they're going to look like they've been funding and supporting terrorists and criminals for the past 8 years, which they totally have, and everybody knows. And Jimmy Dore's talking about it, H.A. Goodman's talking about it, conservatives and Trump supporters are talking about it, a lot of progressives and Bernie Sanders supporters are talking about it. Everybody knows what they were doing, and now they have to backpedal, or else their whole organization is going to collapse. So the answer to this is support the Washington Post when they tell the truth. Go to their pages and let them know you prefer the truth. So, I mean, all of this that I'm saying is verifiable. It's not my opinion. You could go Google and do some research about who the Washington Post is, about who they have contracts with, about who they let write for them, about all of their narratives, about the fact that they pretend it's a democracy, even though they're really a front group that's trying to just spew out propaganda. But they told the truth about Syria in this instance, and President Trump shared it on Twitter. Now I'm going to share it on my Facebook. It's probably going to be one of their biggest articles ever. And like I say always, if you like or dislike President Trump, I don't care. I'm not a fanboy of President Trump. I didn't even vote for him. I like the truth. I like logic. I like reason. I like reality. I like helping people. I like really saving the environment. I like really being a social justice leader. Not a fake, phony one who does it for my ego and for this and that and just follows along with the herd and gets played by George Soros and marches in the street, for people that destroy and manipulate currencies. That's not the type of social justice hero I am. I try to be a real one. So have conversations, talk to people, look at what's going on, and don't just blindly hate or believe anything, whether it's pro or anti-Trump. What's really going to help you and other people is the truth. So I'll share the truth, whoever says it. If it's a conservative that says it, I'll share it. If it's a Democrat that says it, I'll share it. If it's a progressive or a Republican or a Libertarian, I'm going to share it. I care about strictly the truth. I care about all opinions, but what's happening is the New York Times and the Washington Post and MSNBC, they're acting like they're the leaders of truth and love when they're really not, when they're the ones starting the wars. And then they demonize and call everybody else, alt-right and conservative, and they have a name for everybody. So that's their strategy, is they lie about everything, but they control so many news organizations, they blast that lie out, everyone believes it, and then if anybody strays from the norm and says, hey, you know what, I'm not a Trump supporter, I like Trump for this reason, or like, I'm a libertarian, I'm a Green Party, and I think he's doing the right thing in Syria, they'll call you Russian. They'll literally be like, oh, you're working with Russia now. That's the trick that they've been using for years and that they're massively using now. If you don't agree with them, they'll just call you Russian or racist or sexist or alt-right or alt-left. They have a name for everybody. And please pay attention and look what's going on, because it's going to affect you. And, it's already playing in our advantage, because Washington Post now, they're starting to tell the truth about the Middle East. It's going to be impossible to continue to, control people how they were trying to do that. We have a president, we have a lot of people paying attention, and it's a beautiful, amazing time to be alive. So on that note, I would say, support Washington Post when they tell the truth, support New York Times when they tell the truth. That's what I'm concerned about. Honesty, integrity, and real conversations, not the suppression of information. So I'm going to post that link below. I'm going to post my links below. If you'd like to donate, please do. If not, just enjoy your Sunday. Buy yourself something nice to eat. That would make me happy as well. Thank you guys for listening. I'll be back, and let's support mainstream media like Fox News when they tell the truth. Let's support mainstream media like Washington Post and New York Times only when they tell the truth. We need to make it profitable to tell the truth and not profitable to continue lying. And whether you like or dislike the president, pay attention to reality, pay attention to the truth, because if you keep falling for all of these games that they're playing just to get ratings, oh, Russia this, Russia that, Russia this, you're not helping get President Trump out of office. You're not helping people. You're not saving anybody's life. You're actually hurting yourself. It's never going to work out because you're following a bunch of lies. That's my analysis on this. Thank you guys for joining. Have a good day.